On to FAU.
So
Yeah.
with the FAU Owls, Coach McCormick and staff had a lot move on. They were really impacted by the portal. Trey Beard, their ace, 7-1, 3.14 ERA. He is now a Florida State Seminole. Wool, tell us about the Owls.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was on mute. Yeah, Coach John McCormick, long tenured coach. I'm going to be inducted into the American Baseball Coaches Hall of Fame. Great leader, obviously, and they haven't been to a regional since 2019, so they're looking to change that. But he's made it 14 times. They were 37-21 overall. They were 15-12 in the AAC. So obviously they're right there in the thick of things there towards the end. Now they have an interesting schedule. They start February 13th at home against Notre Dame. They don't leave the state of Florida until March 27th when they play at Rice. So think about that home. They're not all at home, but they play Florida in Gainesville. They play Miami at Alex Rodriguez at Mark Light Field until they go Rice. And they play one other game at Miami. So from February 13th until they go to Rice on March 27th, all their games are at home except 3. So, wow. And I know that during that time frame, a lot of teams want to go south and play, but you got Iowa and Villanova, Missouri, those type of teams coming down. So their first, like I said, their first foray into the conference is going to be Rice. Let me just get back to that. Actually, they play UTSA at home. That's their first series. So tough opening series. Then they play Miami Hurricanes, and then they get Rice. So we play them at the end of the year, and you know what that means. We'll be staying down there and then heading right over to the conference tournament. So that's the schedule. They got a pretty good schedule, but they do get to play a lot of home games, and they play Charlotte at home and UTSA at home, so that helps them. Tough games there, tough opponents. So yeah, I mean it's looking good for them. Kind of get better than what they did last year, maybe get back to a regional. So obviously, one of the best players in the AAC, and we know who that is. Tough out is going to lead the team. That's Marshall Lipsy, center fielder, all first team All AAC. 50 runs, 17 steals, 3 triples. He slugged .570 with a 1.061 OPS. So they got a double trouble there at the front of the lineup with pairing him up with Brandon LaRue there, their shortstop, and he's a 2-hole hitter. But he was there. He led their team in hitting, and he started 53 games, and he was second team All AAC. So I know Coach is happy to get those key cogs in the middle of the infield. They're going to be strong up the middle, and I mean strong offensively and defensively, and they're going to be a tough team to battle against. So moving on to the catching aspect, they got a transfer out of Texas State, a little injured at this point. A little bit light with the bat, but defensively very sound. And so, but he was injured, and I'm not sure what's going on with that yet. But he would be the starter if he was ready to go. And then they also have a red shirt from last year, who's a backup catcher for them. Can play the infield as well. So going back into to the their third base is going to be a guy who was a switch hitter. Was his name Nicholas Romano. He played 48 games for them last year, 274 with 4 home runs. And then they also have a freshman that was redshirted that can play both sides of the infield. So their second baseman, another strong up the middle player, John Martinez. He had a 729 OPS, so a little bit light on the bat there, but he made 55 starts, had 14 doubles. He actually had 3 6-hit games. And then at first base, they're going to bring in Patrick Ward. Hopefully he's back for them. He did have some surgery. They say he's going to be back. We'll see how that goes. They have a transfer from Kentucky who hit 320 for them in this fall. He also played some catcher. So we'll see how that works out. And we know what's going to happen. The Lipsy's going to run center field. He's going to be the captain of the team. and they're going to surround him with a graduate student from a D2 school. He hit 343, 20 doubles, 6 RBIs, 6 homers, and 40 RBIs. Sorry, 1,050 on base plus slugging. So his game's going to have to translate from the D2 to D1 level. We'll see how that does. Sometimes we've seen it work out. We'll see. He's got high praise from a lot of people. Say he's got a nice swing. They not a lot of power, but just a true hitter. Based on what they're talking about, it reminds me of a guy I played with named Kevin Riggs, who's just a professional hitter at the plate. So we'll see how that goes from the D2 transfer. And then the other outfielder is going to be a junior college transfer, and he's a lefty hitter. He had 6 home runs and 43 RBIs for his team last year. His name's Brett Patton. And McCormick made a comment that he thought he was going to get drafted, but he ended up coming there. So, and then they have another outfielder they can play anywhere out there. We know, God forbid, an injury that Lipsey's going to be in the center, but they have a guy named Danny Baez that can play out there as well. They do have another guy named Kyle Bolston. Didn't hit a whole lot, but he did play in some games, and they think he's going to become a great player. And he also played on their football team as well. He was a two-way guy they had. Now we know when getting to the pitching staff, they lost one of the best in the conference in Trey Beard. We actually, the game we played against them down there, we actually got to him. So it was one of our better games, and then we kind of threw in a couple duds there before we started to really take off late in the season there. But he's gone, so they're going to have to find a new number one. They got a guy that can throw up in the mid-90s with a lot of arm side run. So he's going to look like he's going to be the star. His name's Tyler Murphy. He's probably going to be their Friday night guy. He had 13 starts last year. So you'll see about 93, 94. It has a lot of pitches that are chased. And he gets in there and pitches, fills up the zone type pitcher there. So then looking like the weekend guys, they got a guy that was an AAC all freshman team. He went 3-3 last year with a 5.04 ERA, but he also made 15 starts just like Trey Beard. And he's a sophomore righty named James Littman. And he throws strikes. And, one of those guys that gets up there, doesn't throw it very hard, but he competes. And I'm sure they'll work with him on getting his velocity up as he matures as a person. They also have another guy named Zach Kilby. He made 22 appearances for them. They made 6 starts. A veteran presence in the lineup. We know how important that is with Jake Hunter and what he did for the team, doing whatever he needed to do, that type of player. So they have another guy that, excuse me, in the bullpen named Kide, and I'm going to screw this name up, Adetuyi, but he made 21 appearances, all in relief. So we'll see if they're going to try and get him into the midweek start. And then they have a freshman who had a great fall season, might be in the mix as well. But it's very early still. He'll figure out his starting lineup. But he does look like he has an ace in Tyler Murphy. So moving on to the bullpen, they lost their closer. He transferred to Texas A&M. And that was MJ Bollinger. He was second team All ACC, had 11 saves, 3-3, 2.01. But he's going to take his services on over to Texas A&M, help improve their team from last year. The new closer's got a guy going to be named. His name is Brian Bully. He didn't throw a whole lot, but he had to go. He had to have surgery, so we'll see if he's back. They got a couple other guys. They got some wild cards here. And one of them I want to point out that I think is going to be a key cog to their pitching staff is a guy named Ryan Buckler. He went up to the Cape Cod, so he had good stuff if they invited him to the Cape Cod League. He went up there and, he pitched a 2.96 ERA in 27 innings. He led their team in wins, and he's one of those guys that can pitch long relief and the end of the game too. I have a big suspicion that Ryan Buckler is going to end up being a thorn in our side and a great pitcher in this conference. So with that being said, I'll let Bubba move on to the next team. Do you have any comments about Florida, the other Owls in our league, Johnny?
JR,
I said no. That was good stuff. Well, I was muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry it was so quick, but like I said, I got a hard stop coming. I'm sorry about that, guys. But yeah, quick brief on them. It looks like they're going to be a challenge as usual. They're trying to get back to a regional. They have a solid defensive team up the middle who can hit as well. We saw what Lipsy can do. I mean, he's a terror when he's at the plate. We saw that last year. So, but they're solid defensively up the middle. I think is the key point I want to make about their team. So they're going to be tough there, and they're offensively tough at the front of the lineup. And then on the rotation, they're still trying to figure out the weekend, but they have a Friday starter, and then they have a couple guy like I mentioned, Ryan Buckley, who I think is going to be a big part of their pitching staff and do some big things for them this year.